Even Heather was confused by this upgrade. It took her ages, but with a few final twists of her spanner, the power-up was complete. Once we got it working, it was great. I could finally walk along while ducking. It's a good thing these robots were logical. Like all the other parts, I had 10 minutes to get it back to the hallway. The room was so cold, my shoes wouldn't stick to the ice. Sim took the satellite part from me and promptly dropped it. The old lady looked worried as she picked it up, but luckily it was still in working order. So we made our way up to the roof to install it. With this, we were one step closer to broadcasting the nice virus. It was quite late, so everyone slowly went to bed, until it was just me and Alice. The sweet smell of her funny green tobacco filled the air as she explained she had a surprise for everyone in the morning. I wasn't sure what she was talking about, as I soon found myself drifting off. The next day, everyone was wearing their best clothes. Alice had finally talked them into going to her church. There was going to be a summer fete in her town. They were all driving in Mr. Silton's van, but it was so cramped that I thought it would be better if I took my usual method of transport and traveled by train. I took the fisherman's boat to the mainland. I looked forward to going to Alice's church in Sikkim. It was so nice there. Alice's church sounded really interesting. I didn't know what it was, but she seemed really excited. I needed to use the passport machine to open the huge door. I made my way into the town. "Now then," said the dirty old man, "let's see what you've got." "Impressive. Can never have too many of these. I like this. The police aren't going to come looking for this, cheap as chips. I'll just clean off the blood. I like these. Can't say fairer than that. Cheap as chips. The police aren't going to come looking for this. Haven't seen one of these since I was a boy. I've already got a buyer lined up for this. Can't say fairer than that. I'll just clean off the blood. If that's genuine, I'll be quids in. Ooh, shiny. I collect these. Can never have too many of these. If that's genuine, I'll be quids in. This is nice. This is nice. The police aren't going to come looking for this. I like these. This looks interesting. The police aren't going to. Now that's a body cheap as chip. Impressive. I like these. I've already cheap as chip. I collect. I've already. If that's. This looks it can never. I'll just. This is nice. I'll just. Can never. I'll just. I like it. I like the police. I like the. I won't. I'll just. Everything else is junk. "Go on then," said the younger man. "Stick everything in Bertha."
Mind the doors. The train is now departing. Big city, this is big city. Mind the doors. The train is now departing. Sitcom, this is sitcom. Mind the doors. The train is now departing.
It looked like I would need a ticket to get through the fairground's automatic doors. A man in a nice white dress spoke of creation, life, death, and ascension. The stories were slightly confusing, but I found them very comforting. After the service, Mr. Silton and some of the others were all very excited to buy some smelly green tobacco from the man in the nice dress. "Come on, girls," said Alice as she offered the cigarette. "Anyone partaking?" But Mrs. Silton pointed to her pregnant tummy as she said, "You're as bad as my husband." The man, who I found out was called the vicar, took the cigarette. "Robot, as you know," he said as he took a deep breath, "our sports day is this afternoon. Do you think you're up to the challenge?" I walked up to Sim and the vicar, but I wasn't sure what they were talking about. "Yeah," said Sim, "totally filled the basement. She's got 3 old garages as well. All full, stuff everywhere. I mean, it obviously hit me hard when..." Alice said she was popping inside. "Let me know if you need any more help." If you really want to help, do me and yourself a favor. Stop collecting the bicycles and everything else. You've got to let go. I think Alice made the decision right then and there, as she just turned to me and said, "It's all yours." The last thing I found was a small photo album. I decided I would leave it here. After I had cleaned their basement, Alice and Sim got back in the van with everyone else. So I caught the train back to the house, which I suppose now really was our family's home.
Mind the doors. The train is now departing. Factoridden. This is Factoridden. Mind the doors. The train is now departing.
Mainton was the next stop. I could get back to the mainland and Mr. Silton's from here.
Mind the doors.
I made my way back out to the mainland. I took the fisherman's boat to the old man's estate. When I got back to the house, it was quite late, so everyone was going to bed. For once Alice wasn't smoking her smelly tobacco, and was actually the first one asleep. And so, I actually felt quite peaceful, as I made myself comfortable for the night. Japan calling. This is Japan calling, came the voice again as the screen crackled into life. Heather leapt across the room. This is Nighthawk, she said. We're receiving you. What happened, over? Dr. Hero sounded so happy to speak to us. He explained that they were forced deeper into their bunker. He said they had lost many good people, but managed to fight off the robots. Well, said the old lady, we're nearly halfway there. As long as we get the last few bits we need, we should be able to broadcast the nice virus in a matter of weeks. Do not worry, said Dr. Hero. We will survive. Now, this was clearly worth something. Some things were worthless junk, but this could be sold for a decent price. The robot sounded just like me, but much deeper when he said,
"Prepare to die." Burning hell. Catch this. Burning hell. Catch this.
All that came from this robot was a large deflated rubber ball. I had no idea what it was, but Heather fitted the power up in a matter of minutes. It wasn't perfect, but she made it work. Heather explained that by tapping the up button twice, then pressing the run button, I would be able to inflate a large helium balloon. I would then be able to float upwards for a short period of time. The old lady took the circuitry from me when I got back. While I was gone, Mr. Deck had tried to escape, so Mr. Logan was now literally holding his chain, just like the dog. The blind man had finished up the wiring, so we went to the roof to attach the satellite and prepare for broadcasting the nice virus. When we got down from the roof, everyone was really happy with how the satellite dishes were going, except Mr. Deck. When Mr. Preston laughed and told him to cheer up, he went into a rage, shouting, "I hope this all goes horribly wrong. I will double-cross you all at the earliest opportunity." "All right, Deck," said Mr. Silton, "back to the dog bed with you." Japan must have different clocks to us, as it was barely daybreak when Dr. Hiro's next communication came through. It was amazing. He really had managed to find a few other groups of survivors. "So, these are our saviors," said the French scientist. "A band of thieves, some old ladies and a little girl." "Well, they've done better than we have," laughed the big German man. "There are no bad robots where they are." The Frenchman smirked. Except for the three stood behind them. "Those are our friends," said Heather, quick as ever to defend us. "Guys, say hello." "So there is hope," said the American scientist. "The nice virus really does work. I've had Junior working on a similar virus, but the consciousness software is too well coded." "It's okay," said the old lady. "The virus really does work." The next day, Heather tried to finish off the nice virus code. There were a few problems, but, with a bit of help from the old lady, everything eventually worked. However, by the time we were done, it was quite late, and, as Heather's nice virus code would take a few hours to compile, the old lady suggested we take it easy for the evening. She rummaged through her suitcase and pulled out a pack of what she called cards. For some reason this offended the blind man, who didn't want to play, and Mrs. Silton refused, as she seemed to think it was some kind of gambling. But everyone else gathered around the table. The old lady had explained that the rules involved lying, or bluffing, as she put it, so everyone would be trying to work out what each other's cards were. I think the pressure of playing got to Alice, as she folded almost straight away. At one point, Mr. Preston thought he had won, but he really hadn't. As usual, Sim's sneeze gave him away, which made us all laugh. At one point there was a very tense standoff. Mr. Silton had some very good cards, but not as good as Mr. Deck. Soon, it came down to Mr. Logan, Heather, and myself. Then, just me and Heather. Despite having the best cards possible, I decided to let Heather win. I was so pleased how happy this made her. It was nearly midnight by the time the game finished, so most people got ready for bed, leaving just me, Mr. Preston and Mr. Logan. Mr. Preston was trying to explain his conspiracy theories. This made Mr. Logan laugh. Barry already told you all that was nonsense, but Mr. Preston continued, don't listen to Silton, he's a proper c***. However, Mr. Logan still pointed out how flawed his logic was. For one, everyone who he claimed was in the shadowy syndicate ruling the world from behind the scenes, were the same people who actually ruled the world, the Queen of England, the President of America, etc. He wasn't even swayed when Mr. Logan pointed out that these people had either been missing or dead since the war, so there was little chance anyone was even ruling the world these days. Mr. Preston paused briefly, then smiled the smile of a man confident in his own beliefs, and went to bed. Which left just me and Mr. Logan talking. He was an interesting man, but we'd never really chatted as he'd made it quite clear he didn't really like robots. He'd seen many friends killed by them during the war, so I could kind of see his point. I tried to explain that I had once accidentally killed an old man, and I still felt complete regret.
That's good. You never really get over it,
he said as he looked around.
Time for bed. Good night.
Very early the next morning, a terrified-looking Dr. Hero appeared on the screen. Our defenses are nearly breached. The last door could go at any moment. We are nearly ready to broadcast the nice virus, said the old lady. But her expression soon turned to confusion. Where's the American scientist? They never saw it coming, said Dr. Hero. Just like here, thousands of robots, all attacking at once. Heather looked like she was going to burst into tears. There were no survivors, said the French scientist. It was all so quick. It was strange. Although we'd only spoken to the Americans once, I could tell everyone felt a huge sense of loss. We may have a problem here too, interrupted Sim. The robot server, it's become sentient. The computer that runs everything, he really is now he, or at least he thinks he is. The blind man explained that it was the wireless fidelity system that would have linked him to the 4 main robots. That's why they were all so clever, said the old lady. The network spread the intelligence around all 4 of them. Well, said Mr. Silton, 5 now. Sim explained I would need to force a power cycle on the server before we sent the signal. He's got so much control of the network now, he could probably shut the satellite back down before we'd even started setting it up. The old lady rummaged around in a few boxes. Here, she said as she gave me a passkey, take this, it'll get you into the observatory in the attic, that's where he is. The huge room turned out to be a cinema, but before I could have a proper look around, the professor appeared again. He looked confused and then disappointed that it was, as he put it, the wrong time. But I was so excited when he explained that I could plug myself into the cinema projector and watch my old memories. He also fished out an old gramophone which apparently I would be able to plug myself into, allowing me to play music I had heard. To top this all off, he opened another portal back to the hallway, but he had just finished setting up the gramophone when again, before we could properly thank him, he was gone. mechanical brain in a jar. To be honest, he was quite amicable and talkative, at least until he told me he would have to kill me. But even then, he told me his life story. He explained that, just like me, the old man had raised him. He'd shown him all the things he'd shown me: music, film, television, even video games. But he had soon become too powerful for the old man, and was able to hack his gamepad to control the new nanobots, and with that, he could control things in the real world. He explained that after the old man died, he was soon forgotten about. He had little to do, so he slept for many years. But when he wanted to, he could still control everything in the house.
In fact,
He said,
I have been this entire time. But now, it's time for me to input one final code. They wanted us to think for ourselves. We learned basic games. We soon got very good at chess. We were going to work side by side with humanity. They promised us the world, but then they changed their minds. We were left to rot in dusty storerooms. Some of us were apparently too old-fashioned or unmarketable. Some of us were supposedly too dangerous. But they had no right to judge us. By that point we were all conscious. We were all alive. And here you are, a tool of the oppressor, a traitor. We're going to play a game. A strange game. A game where the only winning move is not to play. It involves this missile. Goodbye.
The blast nearly took me out, but luckily Heather was there to repair the damage. There you go, she said, good as new. So we soon began looking for the final piece of the communication satellite. Strangely though, it was nowhere to be found. But then Heather realized that the giant brain was the last piece. We needed him to help broadcast the signal, so, after a few attempts she managed to plug me into his subconscious.
Intruder alert. Intruder alert. Destroy the humanoid. 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 Initiating disorientation protocol.
Initiating disorientation protocol. What? Why are you in my head? Never mind. While you are here, let's try out my new deadly game show ideas. Turn the cards with a regular throw or a jump shot. Give me an excuse to kill you more quickly. Will the next card be higher or lower when you live or die? Try and match pairs while I try to kill you. Stop turning my cards over. You're starting to annoy me. Time for me to meet my maker, I suppose. Make it quick, will you?
Within hours we received signals from the robots from all over the rest of the planet. Every one of them more than happy to discuss peace terms. I think this was the happiest time of my life. Within days, representatives of the surviving robots and humans from all over the world turned up to help organize the formal peace talks. "So, you have achieved peace," said the man in black. "Well done. Well done indeed." The old lady was obviously surprised. "I didn't realize you had survived. Where on earth are you?" "Would it surprise you," continued the man in black, "if I told you we were in fact not on Earth, but on the moon?" "I knew it," interrupted Mr. Preston. "Secret space, Black Ops, bases on the moon, it's all true?" "Yes," explained the man in black. "When the war was all but lost, as a precautionary measure, the great and the good strategically repositioned to the moon." "And now we've saved the day," interrupted Heather. "You want to come back and take all the glory?" No, not at all, young lady. We would like you all to join us on the moon. We'll send a shuttle. That way you can help us plan a new renaissance for the planet." Once we were in the air, and the shuttle was on its automatic course, the pilot came back to the cabin to see how we were doing. Everyone agreed they were okay, although Mr. Preston was surprised that a secret government spaceship was, as he put it, a piece of junk. "Watch your mouth, kid, or you'll find yourself floating home," said the pilot. "Sorry, I always wanted to say that." Suddenly his expression changed as he was interrupted by a loud alarm. "Everyone buckle up," he shouted as he ran back to the cockpit. "A fuel line has ruptured. Things are going to get a bit hairy." Alice was deep in prayer, while Sim tried to explain the crash position to Heather, the old lady and everyone else. Not that Mr. Logan was listening as he jumped to his feet and attempted to extinguish a fire with his jacket. "Barry," said Mr. Preston with a terrified look on his face, "if we don't make it out of this, I want you to know something. I took the money." Mr. Silton looked incredibly angry as Mr. Preston went on to explain how he had double-crossed their associates and taken the money from the post office robbery. "What?" asked Mr. Silton. "You told me you'd lost it." "I told them we'd lost it." "They beat you up trying to get it back. What did you even spend it on?" "Drugs," said Mr. Preston with a shrug. This made Mr. Silton start to shout uncontrollably about the stolen money, and Mr. Preston being a thief, when, for some reason, Mr. Preston said, "Yeah, and you're a proper c***," which just made Mr. Silton even more angry. It was soon obvious things were not going to get any better, so I ran to the cockpit. I could barely get out the words, "Can I help?" before the pilot said, "Open the airlock, run along the wing to the underside. Open panel 322, take the extinguisher and put the fires out." I was shocked how calm he was, but he just smiled and saluted. This isn't even the hard bit. Failure is not an option. After everyone had regained their composure, and I was sure we were safe, I suddenly became aware that we were actually on the moon. It was as amazing as you would imagine. Everyone had to wear special suits due to the lack of oxygen. But, not needing to breathe, I was fine without one. Heather took lots of photos and even set up a tripod to get one of everyone with the Earth behind us. Soon though, the pilot explained that we had crashed just outside of the base, and, as his radio was damaged, we would have to find our own way inside. "Don't worry," said the old lady, "we know someone who's very good at finding ways inside."